Hey guys, welcome. Sorry, I started too early. I'm glad Gardis is online for us today and giving us a visual. I cannot give a visual today, so that's amazing. I also want to let you guys know we're talking about Black August, and all proceeds is going to go to one of my favorite charities. If you guys donate anything to me, it will go to the Sandwich Ministry. It's a local charity, and any proceeds you bring over to Burgundy Blue will go to the Sandwich Ministry from the stream. Okay. All right. And any AdSense revenue as well. I should have told her that. But anyway, let's bring up Gardis Watts. Hey, Gardis, how are you?
All right. What's going on?
What's going on? I'm so excited to know about Black August today.
Yes, it is one of my favorite subjects.
So can you tell us what is Black August?
All righty. Let me see if I can share my presentation here.
Please do.
Okay.
And you guys hit the like button. I want to see at least 5,000 views today. Okay. Bring me 5,000 views. You guys who just joined, come on over, because this is very important that we talk about things in our community, even stuff we're going on right now. Even stuff that's going on right now. We need to talk about it. People, remember I would tell you, respect the sacrifice. Respecting the sacrifice.
Okay. Give me one share.
Take your time. Take your time. And you guys, while you're here, hit that like button, comment, subscribe. What's up, Potato Gaming? I appreciate you so much for being here. Oh, you know what? I should put the other link up so that the Sandwich Ministry will get it right away. I didn't mean this one. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. I meant this one. We had a busy day today, y'all. We talked about a lot of stuff. We also talked about we have events going on tonight. This Tuesday has been super busy. All this exciting stuff going on in Dolton as well. Okay, so Gardis has his screen up, and let's talk about Black August. This is a little history. Okay, Gardis, bring me back up and bring your screen up. Go right ahead. I'll let you take the floor.
Okay, can you see my screen? Hello, can you see my screen?
Oh, yep, I'm here. You sure can. Go right ahead.
Okay, all right. So, Black August. So, what is Black August? So, Black August is basically an educational movement that started in the late 70s by people who were part of the prison movement, the prison movement revolution. When you talk about the prison movement revolution, you're talking about seeds of grassroots movements, seeds of revolution, seeds of a lot of what happened in the civil rights and Black Power movement, which all stemmed from the 60s and the early 70s. So when one talks about the Black August movement, the Black August movement in its philosophy is basically a commemoration, reflection, and observance of historical resistance against the racist social structure or oppressive racial social structure. So it basically came from people in the Black Power / civil rights movement of the late 60s and early 70s. Now, one has to remember that Black August is not an extension of Black History Month. This month in August, because the thing is that Black August is not a celebration. It is a commemoration, which is two different things. So we commemorate those who fought and died for our liberation as Black people. Now, there may be some overlap, with Black History Month, but at the same time, this is really not a celebration. Because the thing about Black August is it's not just a historical, but a political education. This movement of resistance is supposed to politically educate us in a way where we are able to pick up the mantle to fight for liberation, and also, for resistance against the racist and capitalist social structure that we kind of basically live in. So,
Okay.
yeah, say that again.
I said, oh, wow. I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. So when one talks about Black August, the people responsible for the movement of Black August, like I said, it was part of the prison freedom, the prison civil rights movement that was happening in the 60s and even towards the 50s. So during the 60s, there was a lot of radicalization at that time. You had the civil rights movement with SNCC and CORE. Then you started to get more into the Black Power movement with the Black Panther Party. However, what's been happening in the 50s and the 60s was the radicalization of people was not just on the streets, but also in the prisons. So there were people in the prison system, Black men who were getting together, kind of doing their part in the liberation struggle within greater confinement. What I mean by greater confinement is the basic philosophy of many of the people who are responsible for the Black August movement believe that as Black people, we are in a prison when it comes to society. Whether it, now most of us aren't behind bars or, not in correctional facilities, but most of us are in a prison in our minds, political ideology, socially, economically. We in some way or another are trapped in a prison. So the origins of this start with three people: W.L. Nolan, Katari Garden, and George Jackson. Now, these three men ended up meeting in San Quentin prison in the 60s, and then later they transferred over to Soledad prison, which I'll get into that a little later. But these three figures are tagged as the leaders of the Black prison movement that politicize prisoners, that politicize in the prison systems. So they're very prominent in this political education when we call Black August. So we start with W.L. Nolan. Now, the thing about W.L. Nolan is that he was incarcerated. I think he was incarcerated in the early 60s. What Nolan did was he started to circulate a petition in the California prison system to file a lawsuit against the California prison system, basically articulating the inhumane and racist conditions that him and mates were basically going through. So in this lawsuit, Nolan states that prison guards are complicit in fomenting racial strife by aiding white inmate Confederates in ways not actionable in court, i.e. leaving cell doors open to endanger the lives of new Africans, placing fecal matter on or broken glass in the food served to new Africans, etc., as these material factors would be difficult to prove. Now, looking at this, Nolan was very versed and also experienced a lot of this, inhumane treatment that Black inmates were getting. So, and then with the help of, the white Confederates, as he calls them, or the Aryan Brotherhood, as it was in the prison system, they were being attacked in regards to that. So, in a sense, Nolan, Jackson, and Gordon basically formed their own protection group, which they called the Black Guerrilla Family. Now, many people would look at the Black Guerrilla Family now and, kind of look at them as kind of like a gangster organization, which, unfortunately, that's what they became. But when they first started to form, they were basically a political protection unit for Black people in the prisons. And Nolan, Jackson, and Gordon were the ones who were the founders of this because they needed the protection while they were fighting this particular lawsuit against the inhumane treatment. So Nolan became the first target of the racist social structure, which is the California prison system. And mind you, all of these three guys also were politicized by the Black Panthers as well, because there were Black Panthers within the prison system. This is around the time in the late 60s when they started locking up Black Panthers. One in particular, Huey P. Newton, who was also locked up for a number of years as well. But what ended up happening was, on January 13th, 1970, a fight broke out in Soledad Prison Yard. And this fight was between the Black Guerrilla Family and the Aryan Nation. Now, Nolan was on the yard at that time. And the guard tower, whose name was Opie G. Miller, not making that up, he ended up shooting three guys: Nolan, W.L. Nolan, Cleveland Edwards, and Alvin Miller. Edwards and Miller were also part of the politicization of the Black prisoners, and also part of the Black Guerrilla Family. So what's interesting is during these fight, typically it is a procedure that the tower guard fires a warning shot. Well, no warning shot was fired. So Miller, the tower guard, who is supposedly expert marksman, ended up shooting W.L. Nolan, Cleveland Edwards, and Alvin Miller, and nobody else. And basically, he shot them dead. No Aryans were killed, and nobody else was killed in this whole basically racist kind of attack by a tower guard. So, in a sense, Jackson spoke out against this murder. Now, before I go into Jackson's activism towards the murder of W.L. Nolan, Jackson has a Chicago connection because George Jackson was born in Chicago. He grew up here up until like he was a teenager, and then his family moved to L.A. During that time of his teenage years. Now, when Jackson was 19, he was incarcerated for stealing $70 from a gas station. Now, what was interesting was at his trial, he was sentenced he was convicted of robbery. But the sentence was one of the strangest sentences that you can ever see. He got a sentence of 1 year to life. Think about that, 1 year to life. So I don't know what that means, but the fact of the matter is that throughout George Jackson's life, at 19 all the way up until his death, he spent time in prison. So on January 16th, 1970, the guard, Opie Miller, who sniped the lives of Nolan and his prison mates, was acquitted of murder. After that ruling, Soledad Prison basically went into riot mode. And in that particular riot, another guard was killed in the process because he was thrown from the third floor wing of Soledad prison. Now, what was also interesting in this is in the investigation, they charged George Jackson, Fleta Drumgo, and John Cliché, and they were all charged with first-degree murder of the guard, whose name was John Mills. But basically, they kind of had no substantial evidence that these three had anything to do with his murder. But, Jackson being the one of the main targets, because apparently there's been some records that George Jackson, even at 19 and younger, had an FBI file. So they were tracking him way before he came into prison. So with Drumgo and Clichette, along with Jackson, they were on trial for murder, and these were what they called the Soledad brothers. Many people think that they were being railroaded in the death of this particular guard because of the fact that they were protesting against the assassination of W.L. Nolan at the time, that happened earlier, a couple of days before that. Now, they went to trial, and this is where they famously and internationally and nationally got the name Soledad Brothers. So on August 7th, in Marion County Courthouse, George's little brother, Jonathan Jackson, and several others with him organized a kidnapping of the judge of that trial. They took the judge hostage, where he was kidnapped with a gun taped to his throat. Jonathan was attempting to free his brother, and also the accomplices of the Soledad three, or Soledad brothers. What happening was they didn't get far, and the van was shot up, killing Jonathan Jackson, James McLean, William Christmas, and also the judge, who was also killed. Now, there was a fourth accomplice, Ruchelle McGee, who actually was the sole survivor of this attack. He ended up getting life in prison, but sometime early last year, he was dying of cancer. So I guess California has this kind of like a mercy law where anybody who's terminally ill, they just parole them. So he ended up getting parole, and he died last year. So Ruchelle McGee served roughly like about 50, 60 years in prison. And then he eventually ended up dying of cancer. Now, when Jonathan Jackson was killed, he was 16 years old. So this young man was basically taking up the mantle of revolutionary violence. When you think about his time with the Black Panther Party, because he was also radicalized by the Black Panthers. Now, also too, he was also a student of one Angela Davis, who has a connection to this particular case. Now, Angela Davis was actually friends with Jonathan and George Jackson, because they were all Angela was not necessarily a Black Panther, but she was a sympathizer of the Black Panther Party. But what they did was, in the investigation, they found out that Angela owned some of the guns in the Marion County court assault. So the guns that Jonathan and his accomplices had, they linked it back to Angela Davis. So an arrest warrant was issued on August 14th. And on August 18th, she made the FBI's 10 most wanted list, which you see right now. However, about 2 months later, around October 13, 1970, Angela Davis was captured at a Howard Johnson hotel in New York City. Now, during this time, she also became a celebrity prisoner, because they were trying to charge her with murder of the judge and the people who were also killed in that Marion County assault attempt. So she became a celebrity, and she got support from various artists and entertainers like John Lennon. Matter of fact, I think John Lennon and Yoko Ono, his wife at the time, made a song called Angela or something like that. But eventually she was transferred back to Santa Clara, where she served roughly about 16 months. But on June 4th, 1972, an all-white jury found her not guilty of the crime. And I believe it's that when you see old videos of Angela, she's getting out of the courthouse, putting up the black fist. And I believe that's when during the time she was acquitted of murder of that. So Angela Davis has a very interesting connection with this, with that whole incident, and also with Black August as well. Now, George Jackson, going back to George Jackson, he becomes the second person out of the three who was assassinated in prison, and also killed, and some people say murdered, under some interesting circumstances. So on August 21st, 1971, George Jackson, after meeting with his attorney, there was a report saying that he pulls out a pistol that was smuggled into his cell. He apparently pulled it out of some parts of his clothing and tried to shoot his way out of the prison. However, he was shot dead. Now, the investigation in the whole thing was very shoddy. And the thing is that the gun that he supposedly smuggled was too big to fit into his shirt or his hat or whatever he was wearing. Because I can't remember what it was, but it was a nice sized gun. Secondly, there was really no chain of evidence of how that pistol got into George Jackson's hand. Now, mind you, after the trial of the guard that was killed, Miller, when he was thrown off of the third floor of the Y Wing at Soledad Prison, Jackson was sentenced to serve life in prison, but he was also in solitary confinement. So the question becomes, how did somebody get a pistol to him while he was in solitary confinement? I've never been in solitary confinement. I've heard stories of it. I've heard testimonies of solitary confinement. But when you say solitary confinement, that means no contact with any person outside of the guard that is guarding your cell. And your only, visitors are very highly scrutinized, and also too, it's very limited. You're spending roughly about 20 hours in one particular cell. So that was very fishy. However, the whole thing basically kind of started a prison riot, where Jackson and several guards basically kind of died in this whole thing as well. And then this kind of resulted in the trial of the San Quentin Six. So during this time, 6 guys were charged of murder of some of the guards that were basically in San Quentin. Now, during George Jackson's time, he wrote 2 important books. One was called Soledad Brother. These were prison letters that George Jackson had compiled during his time in prison. The book actually became a bestseller. It was published in 1970. And he wrote about his life inside and outside prison, and how the system of racism and capitalism, not only imprisoned him, but it oppressed everybody that was in reach of these particular systems. Now, his second book, which was published posthumously after his death in 1972, was Blood in My Eye, which is a very interesting book. I did not read Soledad Brother. I did read Blood in My Eye. But Blood in My Eye is kind of like another series of letters, but it was also days, kind of referring to revolution against racist and capitalist social structure. So George Jackson, while he was in prison, was an avid reader and an avid studier. But he also studied a lot of communist and socialist ideas like Marxism, Maoism, referring to Mao Zedong in China, and studying revolutions like the Cuban Revolution, warfare, in those regards, and also some of the revolutions that happened in Africa, like Algeria. And he was very versed in kind of like how revolution starts, because if I can remember in the book Blood in My Eye, because it was a couple of years ago when I read it, he says revolution first starts in the heart, and then it transfers over to the mind, and then revolution starts with action, and then after that it goes into action, because I think too many people don't have the heart nor the mind for revolution, but they want to go into action, and sometimes it might be reckless, and sometimes people don't want to do revolution because of the fact that it's not in their heart, and then it's not in their mind as well. So Jackson basically has this philosophy in Blood in My Eye about how revolution starts. Now, the last of the three fathers of Black August was Jeffrey Katari Gordon. After George Jackson's death, he was to take the mantle of the leader of the prison movement, and he was the last of the leaders of the prison resistance movement. Gordon was incarcerated since 1967 and was also a well-known activist in the Bay Area even before his incarceration. Now, what happened to Gordon is on August 1st, 1978, he was playing football on the prison yard. However, he ended up suffering a severe head injury where he was bleeding profusely. In the actions that happened after that, Gordon, after that injury, was never treated. He was just basically taken back to a cell where some say he just basically kind of bled to death and ended up dying. So Gordon actually died of kind of like medical neglect. So he was the last of the three, Jackson, Nolan, and Gordon, to become martyrs of this Black August movement. Now, many people of the Black August movement who basically started this movement in the late 70s came up with this idea called a flea day. Now, a flea day is basically an acronym for First Liberation Expedition of Africa. I'm not sure why they named that. I cannot find any documentation or anybody who is who is one of the originators of this, but I can't find any explanation on why they named it. But it basically has something to do with liberation, and also too of Africa. When you think about Africa, we think about us. Now, culturally, we're not Africans, but we do have we're genetically, we do have African genes and African blood in our history, in our DNA, in our lineage. So when they call us Africans, we're not Africans in the sense of, like I said, culturally, but genetically we're still we still have African blood. Now, there are 4 days that are kind of observed as flea days, and these are the days that I had just expressed in the history of Black August. So the first flea day is August 1st, where Katari Gordon was assassinated because of medical neglect, which most people thought was very intentional, and they call it an assassination. The second flea day is August 7th, where Jonathan Jackson, James McClain, and William Christmas were killed in the Marion Court Rebellion. So just like I said earlier, Jonathan Jackson, the younger brother of George Jackson, was trying to attempt to flee or try to help release his brother, and then he ended up getting killed in the process. The third flea day is the death of W.L. Nolan, Alvin. I think I made a mistake. It's not Fig, it's Jug Miller, and Cleveland Edwards, who were assassinated by the prison guards during the fight between them and the Aryan Nation. Now, his actual death date, W.L. Nolan, was January 13th. However, they just basically commemorated on August 13th, just to keep it consistent with, the commemoration and the remembrance of Black August. And then also to day 4, the fourth flea day is August 21st, when George Jackson was assassinated by prison guards in a shoddy investigation of him smuggling a gun and trying to shoot his way out of prison. So the remembrance of Flea Day 4 is on August 21st. Now, many people would say, well, why are we celebrating convicts? As people would, some people on the outside who wouldn't understand, call it. Many people within the movement, many people within the struggle would call them political prisoners. And in a sense, they're basically prisoners within greater confinement, because most of the people within the struggle would say that all of us as Black people are in some sort of confinement, as I said earlier, whether we be in a prison cell, whether we be in our homes, a neighborhood, or mindset. There are many ways that we can be in prison or even enslaved. We're enslaved by politics. We're enslaved by economics. We're enslaved by religion. So sometimes we have to understand what level of enslavement we are under. But what many people in the Black August movement have found out was there were several events within Black history, and this is where the whole this is where the overlap of Black history comes in. Because what they found out was there were several important resistance events that happened in the month of August. One of them are slave revolts. Several key slave revolts were in Black were in the month of August. When you think about it, one of the most important slave revolts that happened was the Haitian Revolution, which started on August 21st, 1791, which ended up becoming a full-out revolution when armies were being organized by the Haitian leader, General Toussaint Louverture, who basically formed a revolutionary army. And then after he was captured and killed, then General Dessalines came and completed the victory of the Haitians, which was Saint-Domingue at the time, beating Napoleon, the Napoleonic army. For many historians who want to look back, Napoleon was the emperor of France, and he had the largest army in the world, and he wanted to keep the Haitians enslaved. So he sent his brother-in-law, General de Klerk, to kind of re-enslave the island of Haiti, but General Dessalines had other ideas, and they eventually beat the French and actually formed an independent nation, which we now know as the Republic of Haiti. So it's the first slave revolt on this side of the world that resulted in a nation, the first Black nation in the Western Hemisphere. Now, another important slave revolt was Gabriel Prosser's rebellion. Now, this did not necessarily end up with anybody getting killed except the conspirators of the slave rebellion. So in August 30th of 1800, a blacksmith enslaved African named Gabriel Prosser planned this elaborate slave revolt in Richmond, Virginia. because he found out that there were more blacks in that area than whites. And what's interesting about this is that this also has Haitian connection, because some of the conspirators were refugees from Haiti. But unfortunately, as with a lot of things, one of the reasons why slave revolts like this fail, also look up Denmark Vesey slave revolt, which didn't happen in August, but there were always the Judas, the people who were part of the rebellion, but they go back and tell the authorities what's been going on. So they were able to capture Prosser and many of the conspirators and basically hang them. But what they found out was the plan of the slave revolt was real huge, and it would have shook up a lot of things in Virginia. Now, Virginia also had a slave revolt 31 years later, which also happened in August. And what's interesting is this also happened on August 21st, just like the Haitian Revolution. And it was Nat Turner's rebellion that happened in Southampton County, Virginia. Many people feel like Nat Turner, who also knew about the Haitian Revolution, intentionally planned it on August 21st to align with the Haitian Revolution. So the Haitian Revolution was a very important slave revolt, which ended up up to like less than a century, collapsing the whole slave market. Because at that point, when Haiti became a nation in 1804, you have the Civil War, which ended in 1865, and then the passing of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in this country. And I believe the last country to abolish slavery in this hemisphere was Brazil, which was in the 1890s, I think. But other than that, a lot of the waves started from the Haitian Revolution, which helped collapse the system of slavery. So it's a very important time. But the Nat Turner Rebellion, a very important rebellion, which basically drove legislators in Virginia into law that it was illegal to teach slaves how to read. So what the narrative is that Nat Turner was a minister who learned how to read by reading the Bible. However, what happened was Nat Turner started preaching the liberation part of the Bible to the slaves, and was encouraging them to kind of liberate themselves from the system of slavery. Now, it's unfortunate, people die in these slave rebellions, but the problem is that slavery itself is a violent institution. And in many ways, the only way to abolish it is unfortunately through violence. You've seen the Civil War end in violence, Haitian Revolution, many things. We can even go back to the biblical times. How did God liberate the Hebrew people from Egypt? He sent down plagues, which basically killed many Egyptians during that time. So it's kind of inevitable that the only way slavery ends is, unfortunately, through violence. But also in August, you had urban revolts that happened during this time. You had the Watts Rebellion. There's a neighborhood in California, in LA, called Watts, where it started off with police beating a young black man, and ended up becoming a fight. And then you have a bunch of people in this particular neighborhood who were basically tired of police brutality and police misconduct and police terrorism. So the people in Watts were fed up and decided to rebel and kind of take over their neighborhood through various violent ways and means. So it happened over a span of 5 days. But what was discovered in this whole process was after the rebellions, many many Southern California historians say that this is where the Black neighborhoods started to turn for the worse in these places. And this is where you get a lot of the gang wars that happened in South Central and places like Compton and stuff like that. And you start to see a lot of drugs filtering into these particular neighborhoods. So you have the Watts Rebellion. You also have the Milwaukee race riots, which happened in late July and early August. 67 was a very hot summer in regards to race riots, as they call it, because there was also a lot of upheaval in a lot of the different cities when you talk about race riots. But same as the Watts Rebellion, Milwaukee, Black folks in Milwaukee was basically tired of police brutality, and they just had enough. So they just basically kind of started tearing up stuff in protest and frustration of these of, like I said, police terrorism. And then a more recent history, which we'll probably be which we celebrating 10 years ago, was the Ferguson uprising. As many of you have already known, a young man named Michael Brown was killed by a white police officer who claimed that he robbed a liquor store and was being resistant to him, and shot him dead in the street and left him out in the street for several hours. When the media and the public got word of that, then a riot broke out. Many people call it an unrest. Ferguson was a hotbed for very much a lot of grassroots and activist activities. But what actually started happening too was Ferguson activists were ending up dead. One in particular, Darren Seals, who was a well-known Ferguson activist in that area, was mysteriously killed later on that year. So you started to see many people in that particular area who fought against police brutality, who basically kind of ended up mysteriously dead, just like just like the three Black August fathers as well. You also had nonviolent resistance in August. The March on Washington, which happened in August 28th, 1963, led by Dr. King. This was a movement during the civil rights struggle. Dr. King, who was in the nonviolent resistance, basically wanted equality for Black folks, and was ready to march, protest, do whatever he needed to do. Now, many people kind of, fluff King as this soft, nice Christian minister gentleman who was a lot more to it than just that. King was a very intelligent minister who knew politics, but he also knew the plight of Black people. But he also knew how to maneuver and how to organize and how to mobilize Black people in a sense where they can fight for their liberation actually without bloodshed. And his methods were very effective. So effective that he was deemed a threat. He was wired by the FBI. He had an FBI file a mile long, and eventually in April 4th, 1968, he was unfortunately assassinated. So Dr. King was much more of a threat than what most people say, but he was basically a revolutionary at heart, even though he had different ways of setting the revolution, because war can be fought on many fronts, and his front was much less blood than anything. Much less blood and more changing of hearts, minds, and ideologies to a more humane standard than anything. What also was discovered was August has a number of birthdays of revolutionary figures. One, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who was the founder of the UNIA, the United Negro Improvement Association. Garvey was one of the first Pan-Africanists to rally from an estimate 40 million Black people across the world into his organization for a race first, but also to encourage Black folks that, we can do it. We don't have to rely on, white people to do this and that for us. We can build, our own, and we can build our own nation. So Garvey inspired many people after him, one including Malcolm X's father, who was a Garveyite, and several other Garveyites that, that we might, see in history that they probably don't tell us. But many people think that the Nation of Islam's ideology comes from the Garvey movement, even though some of them might, object to it. But Fraud Muhammad and also to the Moorish Science Temple really admired Garvey's work in regards to Pan-Africanism and self-sustaining nationhood. You have the literary giant James Baldwin, who used to write against the racist system that he lived in this country, but also too, he was also LGBTQ, who was a gay man and never shied away from that. But Baldwin did not let that define him, because the way gayness was considered back then, it was kind of like a stain, it was like a scarlet letter type of thing. So Baldwin, in a sense, he didn't care, but he kept writing and was a very articulate person who could debate many people. He had an interesting debate with Malcolm X, and I encourage people to look that up, because Malcolm, in a sense, respected Baldwin. Even though he knew he was gay, he never spoke about that, when he was debating him. He only debated him on his points, because Malcolm was more of a separatist, because he was still in the Nation of Islam. And Baldwin felt like separating Black people, separating completely, was not the right time yet, even though Baldwin understood the conditions of Black people. But the debate between Malcolm and James Baldwin was pretty interesting. I encourage people to check that out. You have Fred Hampton, Chairman Fred Hampton Sr., president and chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party, who was unfortunately assassinated by the Chicago police. He was a rising star in the Black Panther Party. Matter of fact, many people had speculated he was going to be on the national panel of the Black Panther Party, which was already being run by Huey P. Newton. And many people, especially some in the Black Panther Party outside of Chicago, had feared that he was going to take over. But he was such a charismatic figure. And he was very intelligent as well, and is very articulate in the way he talked about the racist and capitalist system. And he's one of the few Black leaders that can actually get people from other ethnic and racial groups to get together and band together against police brutality and police terrorism. He got Confederate white groups to work with the Brown Berets, the Black Panthers, and nearly got the Black Pea Stone Rangers to work with the Panthers. Unfortunately, because of COINTELPRO, which is the FBI's undercover operation to break up communists and also Black Party and Black resistance groups, they were festing this war between the Black gangs and also the Black Panther parties. But even at Fred Hampton's funeral, the leader of the Black Pea Stone Rangers, Jeff Ford, came to his funeral and paid him much respect because he respected him highly in his efforts, and actually it encouraged Jeff Ford to become more conscious and aware of his black history. You have Mutulu Shakur, who is for those who know, the stepfather of the rapper Tupac Shakur, but he was also a Black Panther as well, along with Tupac's mother. But he was also an acupuncturist, and he made acupuncture very popular amongst the Black community. I never had acupuncture, but I heard it's pretty, it's pretty effective in some ways when it comes to pain relief and muscle relief. So, but Mutulu, who I think he just recently died last year around this time, was also a political prisoner. He was one of the people that actually helped Assata Shakur escape, and this is why he had to serve a prison sentence for that. And then you have Chokwe Lumumba, who was a member of the New Republic of Africa. He was a lawyer. He was a trained lawyer. Got his lawyer degree from Wayne State. But he was also his mother was part of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and his mother used to, as a child, used to take him to SNCC meetings and also protest as a child. And this is what kind of radicalized him, because he also founded something called the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, which is a political organization that catered and helped the plight of Black politics. When you talk about Black politics, is what politics will do for Black people in the area, because many times politics is so imbalanced that other ethnic groups get more than what Black people get. So he was part of that movement. But he did a lot of his work in Detroit because that's where he's from. But he actually ended up running for a councilman's position, winning that, and being mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. He ended up dying a couple of years ago, and now his son is actually the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi right now, Chokwe Lumumba Jr. But this Black August energy is very important when you think about how we move about this politically. So last year, we got an instance of Black August being something that formatted within the month that we celebrated. So as many of you know, last year around this time, there was on the Montgomery, Alabama riverfront, there was a guard who was trying to tell a bunch of, there was some white people who were on a riverboat who was trying to tell them to move. They didn't want to move. So the white people attacked this Black man. Now, there was a ferry of Black people who was watching this, and what they ended up doing was they ended up docking and ended up helping this guy. And so in the end, they ended up running the white people out of the area because they weren't going to sit back and watch a bunch of white people attacking this Black man trying to defend himself. So this ended up becoming a riverfront fight. And this is, what we see, because for some reason or another, Black August energy took over for these folks. So in the end, like I said, it's all about commemorating, but not just commemorating, but studying political resistance, and also to remembering that there were people who were willing to put their lives on the line, to sacrifice for our liberation. Many people do not want to get into the fight of liberation because, for one, it's uncomfortable, it's too hard, and the little that we get from the white social structure, we want to keep it, because unfortunately, if we do get into this fight, some of us lose all of that, and some of us, including, lose our lives. So revolution is not a thing that people just jump into because, as George Jackson said, it starts from the heart and then it goes to the mind and then it goes to action. Because if you don't start from the heart, then there is basically no revolution. It's just basically recklessness if you're trying to do this. And it's not only going to get you, randomly killed at some point, but probably put other people in danger, maybe some friends and loved ones that you have. But there has to be an understanding of that. So in the end, I close with a quote from George Jackson's book, Blood in My Eyes, where he says, "As a slave, the social phenomenon that engages my whole consciousness is, of course, revolution. Revolution should be love inspired." And I take that to heart because of the fact that there has to be a love for the people in order for us to be in this fight. And so at that point, I end this. If there's any questions.
Thank you for this, Gardis. This is very interesting because I just did not know exactly everything that brought us to this point of Black August. I did read a couple of things, but you said it all. If you guys have any questions, can anyone reach you anywhere? Gardis, can you put it in the chat if they want to email you any questions?
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
And you guys, this is phenomenal. That energy of August is something else. I want to do a part 2 if you don't mind, Gardis, when you could tell us a little bit. I was reading some of the mainstream media points of Black August, and they brought up things that happened in August, like Emmett Till,
Mm-hmm.
Barack Obama accepting the nomination, things of that. And I want to do some more history. I think this is amazing that you gave this to us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for letting me present this, because, like I said, it's actually one of my favorite things to talk about. So, and what's also interesting is, I've only come to Black August just a couple of years ago, maybe about 4 years ago, because I'm sitting up here like I hear people talking about this Black August thing, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm supposed to be like the student of history. I'm like, what is the Black August thing you're talking about? So, and it's like they've been doing this since the 70s, and I just kind of like felt, I felt small at that time because I was like, wow, I should know this stuff. But yeah, it's something that I stumbled upon, like I said, 4 years ago, and I'm glad I did, because I think this is important. And like I said, this is something that should not be confused with Black History Month. But also to, with a lot of our holidays, because one of the things that many Black August scholars want to emphasize is that this is not a holiday. It's not a holiday. It's commemoration. It's reflection. And in those particular times, it's nothing to celebrate, but it's just to remember what the people before us have done to fight for our liberation, including giving up their own lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to respect those sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Gardis.
Okay. You don't have any questions?
I didn't want to step on your I do. I didn't want to step on your I have some notes here about James Baldwin
Mm-hmm.
and him meeting with Malcolm X. And I loved how you put, even though he was friendly with the LGBT, James Baldwin was part of LGBTQ community. Malcolm X never made that a point anytime he debated him or anything like that. I thought that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn more about that. And then I also want to know, y'all hear my pages. Hold on.
Let me find it, because the YouTube video is out there. They actually taped that
Wow.
conversation in regards to James Baldwin, and if anybody has it, please put it in the chat.
Now I did see a photograph, but I never really looked into what was happening. And then also the next thing I want to talk about, while you were saying, I have to put this out here. I want to say, because we're talking about, you brought up Marcus Garvey possibly having influence over, was it the Nation of Islam?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just bring up, I want to send my condolences to Sister Karen Farrakhan,
Yeah.
for sure, the Farrakhan family of losing Sister Karen Farrakhan this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that. Like this is, I don't have I would like, I feel like we can learn. It's no limit to how long we can learn. So I was literally sitting here taking notes because I have saw the photograph of James Baldwin and Malcolm X, maybe black and white, but I never looked into it. And I love to learn this history.
Yeah. So, well, many people in the nation would possibly argue against the influence of the Garvey movement because of the fact that much of the ideas of the Nation of Islam disseminate from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. However, before his conversion into Islam, Elijah Muhammad, while he was never like an official member of the UNNIA, he was actually, he was actually a sympathizer, and a lot of the philosophies of the Garvey movement was influential. I mean, you can actually see it in the Nation of Islam, where they're trying to be a self-sustaining type of unit. So I know my brothers in the nation would argue with me in that, but it's almost like it's almost like the history is there, and it's not like there's no disrespect on getting those ideas from the Garvey movement, because the thing is that these are ideas that need to be done, they need to be had. So I would say that there were some things that influenced that the Garvey movement influenced on the Nation of Islam.
Absolutely. And I also want to bring up, this was the month that they this was the month, August was the month that Emmett Till was slain. And I recently came across one of his relatives doing YouTube, a cousin of Emmett Till's, and I just was like, how did all these things happen in August to our people?
Mm-hmm.
This is, I mean, from, if you want to say the history to, like you brought up the brawl, to what's going on right now. This is like a delicate month for us, and I never knew that a lot of our historical points happen this month.
Yeah, and going back to the origins of Black August, because you also had something that I didn't speak about, was the Attica Rebellion. So there was a prison riot, one of the biggest prison riots in the country, in Attica, I think it was New York, which happened in September. But many Black August scholars would kind of push that to August, because a lot of what fermented in the Attica Rebellion kind of started in August. So they kind of include that into Black August history as well.
This is interesting. What do you think about one more? I'm going to play a little bit of this because I feel like I got away from James Baldwin just a little bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting.
This growing group, religious group of Black people here in the Western Hemisphere. When we give our views, we don't give them as a civic group, we don't give them as a political group, but we give them primarily as a religious group. And any solution that we support, we absolutely feel that it's a religious solution rather than a political solution. One of the one of the reasons that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in teaching us here in America, is giving us a solution that differs drastically from the sit-in movement. He's trying to make us men. Now, the very fact that you find students all over the world today are standing up for their rights and fighting for their rights. But here in America, the so-called Negro students have allowed themselves to be maneuvered under a tag of sit-in. Actually, I guess it describes it. The name describes its nature. It's a passive thing. And if their goal is integration, it's not a worthwhile one. But if their goal is freedom, justice, and equality, then that's a worthwhile goal. If integration is going to give the black people in America complete freedom, complete justice, and complete equality, then it's a worthwhile goal. The holding this integration bottle and dangling it in front of the Negroes in America today has actually disabled them, or it has nullified their ability to stand up and fight like a...
I wanted to pause there right quick. Why do you feel like people do not know about Black August? Why is it? Because it's a commemoration instead of a celebration, much like our July. I'm sorry, the event in July. Could you tell me? I'm sorry, I don't. I just had a blank. Goddess, forgive me.
The event in July.
Yeah.
You talking about the Attica prison
No,
revolt?
I'm so sorry. We just had, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm having my brain is not working. I'm doing two things at once. But we just had a Black History celebration in July.
In July.
Anybody put in the chat? I don't know why, because now I wrote notes and now I cannot recall. We had all these events in July across the Southland to celebrate Juneteenth. Thank you. Juneteenth.
Okay, Juneteenth. Okay, Juneteenth.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
Juneteenth.
Forgive me. So Juneteenth just happened. Why don't we talk about Black August as much? Because we're still not all the way there. So we're still fighting for our rights. So why is it just such like a blank where no one knows about this? I had no idea before you told me about it.
Well, the problem is that Black August, the concept of it is revolutionary, and it's about revolution, and it's about people who are committed to ending oppression, actively participating in ending oppression, because that job does not give you safety. It doesn't give you any sort of comfort, because all revolutionaries don't live in comfort, because their lives are on the line. They're not rich people, and because they give all they have to the cause. And so when you're talking about Black August, remembering that and encouraging people to revolt against the system of oppression, it's not a comfortable thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even resistance is getting more and more widely defined now, whereas even thinking independently is labeled resistance by the powers that be. Think about it. When we talk about Dolton and we don't say anything, we don't go with the narrative of Tiffany is this, Tiffany is that, and we start looking at it from a more broader perspective, and basically not excluding Tiffany, but putting her in a picture of a more broader and wider issue that the village is having and the township is having. So even that way of thinking to some people is resistance, and in some cases revolutionary. Some people might, and then you get the name calling that we getting paid by Tiffany. And I'm going to say this again. Tiffany doesn't have enough money to buy me out.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have enough money to buy me out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something, it's something different, but also it encourages people to get away from the grain and to start looking at our own lives and to start thinking and then start putting into action those things that we see that we can fix to give people a more liberated mind space about their situation, about themselves, because sometimes we have to be told how to liberate ourselves. And that within itself is not, it doesn't make sense when, say, the oppressor has to tell you that you cannot liberate yourselves this way, that you have to do it that way. And somebody who is an oppressor is not going to give you the keys to freeing yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The slave masters didn't give the keys to their slaves and be like, here, go free yourselves. No, it doesn't work that way. But one of the scholars for Black August, his name is James Doc Holliday, who's actually in the prison in Marion, which is in downstate Illinois. He's also a political prisoner as well. But he has these 5 tenets of Black August, and I'm going to read it off to you. He says, number 1, the 5 tenets of the Black August program. He says, number 1, a fast, which historically has been used as an expression of personal commitment and resistance. Hence, from the sunrise until evening meal, we abstain from eating. Number 2, we abstain from consuming any type of intoxicants for the entire month of August. The necessity for this should be self-evident for all serious participants of Black August. Number 3, we limit our selection of television and radio to educational programs, i.e. news, documentary, and cultural programs, etc. Number 4, during Black August, we emphasize political and cultural studies for individuals involved in Black August. Participants in Black August should pair off with someone else you know to study and share knowledge of African affairs. And number 5, as an outward expression of Black August, we wear a black armband on our left arm wrist as a tribute to those Africans who have died as a result of the sacrifice for African liberation. The armband can be worn on either side or outside of your clothing. So, James Doc Holliday, like I said, he's one of the scholars of Black August because he was around during that time when they first came out with it. So I thought I wanted to share that.
I appreciate you sharing that. That is amazing. And I was just going to share. Do I have the correct person here? I wanted to share that on our screen. Let's see if I have the correct. Is that James Doc Holliday?
Yes, that is.
Okay. Want to look a little more into it. Gardis, I appreciate this knowledge. I love to learn about history and especially our history. Thank you for sharing Black August, what it meant, the commemoration to us. We appreciate it. And Gardis did tell us in the chat, if you had any questions, you guys can put it below. You can put it in the description box. If you don't want to send an email, just put it in the description box. I'll make sure that he gets it. Put in the notes. I'll make sure that he gets it. And also, all the proceeds and the ad revenue goes to the Sandwich Ministry from this video. Okay, so if anybody made any donations, it goes directly to the Sandwich Ministry. Thank you, Gardis. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Berg. Thank you for giving me this platform, and thank you for the chat who's listening, and thank you for all those who watched the replay.
Thank you. You have a great one.
You too.
Bye. So that was Gardis Watts. I was paying attention, guys, but let me tell you something. I've been sitting here writing notes because you guys, I have so many questions. I just learned about Black August this year by doing this show and talking with Gardis Watts. I had no idea it even existed. Juneteenth, I knew about a few years ago, but Black August, for sure, just now. So we're going to hopefully do a part 2 because I want to talk about some other things that happen and ask Garda some more questions about it. We're halfway there through August. Let's keep our head up. We're going through a lot right now, but if we remember the people that sacrificed for us, honor them, share their stories, we are doing no wrong. All right, you guys, thank you so much. You take care of yourself and each other, and I'll see you soon. I'm going to edit this video a little bit, the beginning, so we only get Garda's teachings because I had nothing to say. This was an amazing presentation. I thank you so much, Gardas Watts, for at least coming to this platform where all I do is talk and be silly. So thank you for coming over here and sharing that with us. As always, y'all take care of yourself and each other. Until next time, bye.
Commentary blue, commentary, burgundy, commentary, comment blue, commentary, comment burgundy blue, commentary.